Holy Thursday is obviously a very special day. It is a very special day in the life of a priest because it's on Holy Thursday that Jesus institutes two sacraments, the priesthood and the Eucharist. On the morning of Holy Thursday, we always have the Chrism Mass in Greensburg, in which Bishop Malesic consecrates all the oils that will be used throughout the diocese and all of our parishes sacramentally. And then during the course of that Chrism Mass, we have the renewal of priestly vows, because for a priest, that is the anniversary of the priesthood. Now, every priest has his own anniversary of his ordination, but the anniversary of the priesthood is Holy Thursday. And I would imagine, as anyone who is married, whenever you go to a wedding, you probably are at the wedding thinking about, if you're married, thinking about your wedding day and all that you have gone through in your married life. The same thing really happens, I would imagine, for all priests. It definitely happens for me. Whether it be an ordination to the priesthood or the Chrism Mass, in which we renew the vows of priestly ministry, the anniversary of the priesthood. But every time I'm at that Mass, I have a tendency to begin to think about my priesthood and all that I've been through. Both good, bad, and, as they say, the ugly. But I was thinking this morning about a fella, and there's so many blessings that has come my way as a priest. So many relationships you develop with people in sometimes the strangest of ways. And one fella in particular that I've been friends with now for quite a long time. Our friendship developed, as I said, in the strangest of ways. In several of my former assignments, I was not only a pastor, but also worked as the chaplain to the near hospital that I was assigned at. And I remember being the chaplain at this one particular hospital in one of my former assignments, and it was a very busy hospital. Getting called to the hospital in emergencies was something that occurred on nearly a regular basis. Getting called for an emergency in the middle of the night was something that occurred 5 to 7 times a month. Those night emergency calls. Whenever you get those calls and a phone would ring and you had a pretty good idea it was the hospital, you knew that you're going to be up for a while. You're not sure what you're going to encounter when you get to the hospital. I remember one really cold winter night. The phone rang at 3:30 in the morning. I was positive it was the hospital. So I answered the phone. It was the wrong number. And the fella on the other end of the line kept apologizing to me. And I said, no, you just did me a favor. Because when the phone rang, I already knew that I'd be getting all my clothes on and washing my face and getting in a car and traveling to the hospital. I get to hang up this phone and crawl back in bed. This is one of the best wrong numbers I've ever had in my life. But this one night, the phone rang, as it did 5 to 7 times, offering coverage to this hospital during the middle of the night, and I got to the hospital. And when I'd be driving to the hospital, you never knew for certain what you would find. A DOA, a heart attack, a suicide, or anything along those lines. This one night when I got there, I was told by the nurse what room to go into, and I went into the room, and there was a fellow there. He was shot at a local convenience store, 29 years old. He was shot right in the middle of the back, at the lower back. Now, his family was in an ante-room, and so I said hi to them first, and we talked for a few minutes. I went into the emergency room to anoint this fella. Anointing him that night was very difficult because the doctors and nurses were very busy. So I anointed him from the corner of the room, just saying the prayers, and I wasn't able to anoint his forehead or his hands. The doctors and nurses had to do their work. I anointed his hands and his forehead mentally to myself because I couldn't get close. After that, I went back out to talk to his family. We had a good conversation. A couple of days later, I went back to the hospital to see what was going on. And it was there our friendship developed. 29 years old. The understanding of what happened that night to him wasn't that clear that particular night, but a couple of days later, it was becoming in focus what would happen to his life. He told me to be paralyzed from the waist down. 29 years old. When you're a young man, 29 years old, I'm sure a young person at any age, and you then become paralyzed in any position. But for him, from the waist down, your entire life changes. Everything changes. I would visit him often as he was trying to develop and find a new normal in his life, which was a difficult thing to do for him. His girlfriend, his fiancée, who was to marry, she left. The place in which he worked fired him. His family stuck with him. That's all he needed. Was his family, and he said to me time and time again, his faith. Oh, he was a Catholic. A nominal Catholic at the time, but he became very close to Christ and developed a strong love and affinity for his Catholicism. I would visit him often. Once a week, once every other week, I drive out to his house as he was trying to come to grips with being a 29-year-old man paralyzed from the waist down. After visiting him for about a year, I could tell that he was putting in some long days. He would be at home. People tell me that if he can't sleep, nights are long. If he's paralyzed from the waist down for this young man, not only nights are long, but days are even longer because you're stuck in the house. What am I going to do now? I remember driving out to his house one day before I got there. I went to the store and I got him a puzzle, a 250-piece puzzle. I figured maybe he'd enjoy that. Well, he enjoyed it, and he got pretty good at putting together 250-piece puzzles. So sometime later, I bought him a 500-piece puzzle, and I got pretty good at those. And then I graduated, and I got him a 1,000-piece puzzle, and he enjoyed those. Now, a couple years have already elapsed. I'm buying him these 1,000-piece puzzles about every other week. I remember I'm visiting us one day, and he said to me, Father, can you do me a favor? Get me a really, really, really hard puzzle. A really hard one. Okay. About 2 weeks later, I'm going to go out to visit him, so I stop at the store, and I go to the section where they have the puzzles, and I'm looking for a really, really hard 1,000-piece puzzle. Now, they all kind of look the same because they have the picture and the puzzles inside, and I'm thinking to myself, how can I find a really, really hard 1,000-piece puzzle? As I'm standing there trying to find out what's a hard puzzle, this man shows up out of clear blue sky. I believe in my heart it was an angel. This guy just dropped down. He just shows up right next to me. And a guy said to me, an older man, he said, what are you looking for? I said, well, a buddy of mine, he's paralyzed from the waist down, and he enjoys puzzles, but he told me to find him a really, really hard puzzle. And the guy looked at a shelf, and he simply grabbed one, and he grabbed it, and he handed it to me. He said, here, this is one of the hardest puzzles in the store. And I looked at it. It was a 1,000-piece puzzle, and all the other ones. I said to him, well, what makes this puzzle so difficult? It looks like all the others. The pictures changes, but why is it so difficult? He said, what's going to make this puzzle difficult is what you're going to do to this puzzle before you give it to him. What's that? He said, you're going to take it out of its original box. You'll leave all the 1,000 pieces there. You're not going to take any of the pieces. That's cruel. But what you're going to do is put the 1,000 pieces in another box and give him a box without a picture. That's what is known as a very difficult puzzle to put together. So I went out to his house, and I gave him the puzzle, and he looked at it, and he's rolling this box that I had found, and he's looking for the picture. Where's the picture? There's no picture. There was a picture. But this guy told me you wanted a hard puzzle to put in a different box, and I left the picture back at the rectory. You see, naturally, whenever you put together a puzzle, you set the box up, and there's the picture. You know what to put together. He had no idea what the picture would be, what it was to look like. He was excited, however. I went back a couple days later and to see how he was doing with the puzzle. And again, he's spending full days just trying to occupy himself. And he did something that made a lot of sense to me. He went through all those 1,000 pieces, and he was looking for every piece that had a flat side. That would be the perimeter piece. And he literally had put together the perimeter. All the flat sides, some would be a flat corner, 2 sides, and that was the perimeter. He had the perimeter put together, but that was it. The inside was missing. He had no idea what the picture would be. He worked on that picture and worked on that picture, and I would visit him every couple of weeks, and he'd be filling it in from the outside to the inside. I remember after about a month and a half, 2 months of putting that puzzle together without having a picture, his life started to come together. So much time had elapsed, he was growing into being a young man paralyzed from the waist down. With the assistance of his family and insurance, he was able to get a van. So he could now get from the wheelchair into the van and drive places. That was such freedom and liberation for him. It was unbelievable. Another very beautiful thing happened. The one gal that was coming out to the house with physical therapy, guess what happened? They were doing a little bit more than physical therapy. They had become friends and buddies. And they were talking about marriage. And I remember when I visited him and he was starting to put that puzzle together. He was starting to squeeze into the interior of the puzzle itself. And he said to me this one day, he said, that puzzle, the puzzle without a picture, became the story of my life. He said to me that when he was shot and then discovered that he'd be paralyzed from the waist down, the picture of his life that he had in his mind to marry this gal that he was calling his girlfriend, they're going to get married, and to work at the place he had been working at for a long time, that particular picture of his life had been destroyed. He told me that after that, each morning when he woke up was a morning of dread, of pain. I got to live another morning. I got to live another day. Life became drudgery. It became work. But as all this time had elapsed and he started to develop a new normal, having a girlfriend, having a van, having that loving family, and putting together a puzzle without a picture that was now just about complete. And he said to me, I am never going to complete this puzzle. I can, but I don't want to complete it. Why not? You finished every other puzzle I gave you. Why would you not want to complete this puzzle? Because he said, this puzzle has become a representation of my life. He said, every day of my life, now when I wake up, I'm excited about waking up in the morning because God gives me another piece of my life's puzzle, my life's picture. Days are exciting now. I got a pretty good idea what this puzzle it is. I'm only about 40 pieces away from finishing it, but that's going to be my masterpiece. That's going to be my life. I don't want to complete that puzzle because I don't want to complete my life. What is the rest of my life going to look like? He said, I don't know. He answered his own question. He said, all I know is this. Every day that I wake up, God gives me another piece of my life's puzzle, and it becomes more and more in focus. Isn't that what happened to Jesus? On Holy Thursday night, when he's with the disciples in the upper room, his disciples have an idea, a picture of what the future is going to look like. Jesus is talking some nonsense. As he said, this bread is my body, this wine is my blood. They're not exactly too sure why he's talking like that. They don't know the future. They don't know the picture. They see the future is going to be destroyed the next day. They'll have to develop a new picture, a new normal. Life will become different. The picture of the life will be something they never expected the day before. And that's exactly what happened. On Crucifixion Friday, when the disciples and the Blessed Mother walk off that mountain, they had to say to themselves, what does the future hold? The picture I had of my life is now gone, and I don't know what the new picture is going to look like. That's what this paralyzed fella said. But that's our life. That's my life and your life. As Bishop Malesic said this morning to all of us priests, he was talking about St. John Vianney, whose relic's at the cathedral right now. And he said that when St. John Vianney first became a pastor, the parish he was assigned to, he ran away from that parish 4 times. But the parishioners kept running after him and bringing him back. But for every priest sitting there, every one of those guys had a picture of their life before they got the call from God, of what their life would look like. And when you got that call, and when they got that call from God, and I got that call from God, the life that I had built for myself, my picture, was now destroyed, is now changed. It'd be a whole new picture. The old picture with everything I had in mind and everything I had going for myself and everything I had mapped out for myself, I thought it was great. But only to find the new picture that God would give to me through the priesthood would be better than the picture I had been working on. For at that point was my whole life. But that's the way life works. I gave this fellow a call after I got back from the Chrism Mass. So it was 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon today. Just telling him I was thinking about him. He's doing very, very well. I said to him, I haven't seen you in a while, but that puzzle. He said, that puzzle is in our, because he married his physical therapist. That worked out. It's in our living room. He said, it's on my coffee table. Unfinished. 40 pieces stacked right in the center of the picture itself. I just keep them there because I don't want to complete that puzzle. Because that puzzle represents my life. He said, my life is an incomplete picture. I have no idea what's going to look like when I turn 60, 70. Whenever good Lord allows me to take my last breath, I have no idea how my life and my world's going to shape. I had one picture many years ago. That picture was destroyed. This picture that I'm putting together, I don't want to complete. He told me he celebrates every morning of life because every day is a new piece of the puzzle. He celebrates life. He found a new normal that's better than the old one. As he just said to me 3, 4 o'clock this afternoon, surprisingly enough, his darkest day, being shot in the back, became his most glorious opportunity of life. It changed his life for the better. Every day is a blessing. That's true for him. That should be true for all of us. There's a lot of people I know, they dread waking up. Days are hard and difficult. Pain sometimes is intense and arduous. But we need to celebrate life. We need to celebrate each day, every day that we are given the piece of our puzzle so that one day our picture of our life will be complete. I don't want to know what the rest of my picture will look like. I don't want to know how many pieces I have left. All I know is this: the puzzle I once worked on was destroyed. The puzzle I'm working on now is still a mystery. And mysteries are exciting. So I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, or the next day, or next year. It doesn't matter. All I know is I look forward to waking up tomorrow and the next day and the next year, because God will allow me to have many, many pieces of my puzzle put together. And my life will become in focus. And when God says to me, and he says to you, come, it's time to go home. On that day, he'll give me my last piece, my last day, and I'll put it in. And I'll tell him, now I understand. My life has become and has been imperfectly perfect. And hopefully that's the case for you. That's the case for this young man. I believe in my heart that this fellow who said to me, here's a tough puzzle. He showed up from nowhere. And after he handed me the puzzle and I thought about his crazy idea of taking the puzzle from the box and putting it in another box, I turned to say something to him and he was gone. Who was he? I believe in angels. He was that man. Now maybe he scurried off and went to buy some other products. But God put him right next to me, not for me, but for the man who was shot, to teach me a lesson and him a lesson about life. When you go to sleep tonight, go to sleep with excitement, realizing that, oh, I can't wait to wake up tomorrow morning, because what does tomorrow morning offer? It offers another piece of your life's puzzle. A puzzle that hopefully you'll have years to continue to work on. A puzzle hopefully you will not finish for years. And when you do, as when this man does, and God says, come home with me, you'll be able to say to God, thank you. Now I understand what my life was for, the purpose of it. And hopefully you'll make a conclusion that I think would be a great conclusion, to say to God, thank you, because my life up to this point, and when it finishes, will have been perfectly perfect.